Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Stamperia Vintage Library mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. In this tutorial, we're going to begin decorating page 2, so stay tuned for that. And if you are new to the tutorial series, all of the papers that I'm using to decorate this album are linked in the description box below on the Scrap and Create website, so you can go ahead and check those out. Just click on those links and you can purchase your papers and follow along. The first piece I'm going to cut is from the 12 by 12 paper with all the books in the door. I cut from the top left corner 2 3/4 of an inch by 6 inches. And we are going to adhere this piece right here in that top of the upper pocket. From the same paper, I have the top right corner and it is cut to 4 1/4 by 6 inches. On this one though, we're going to be using this side of the paper. So I'm going to be placing this piece here, and to prepare my piece, I'm going to set this so this corner here is right at the edge of my slanted piece. And I want a margin here and here that's even. And then I'm going to mark right here where this slant is there. I'm just going to put a mark on that. Then I'm going to take this in my paper trimmer. If you don't feel comfortable doing this in your paper trimmer, draw a line from that corner to the mark you made and then cut with your scissors. So once that piece is cut off, when we place this here, it has that perfect line with the slant, and it'll cover our pocket with that margin. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this on, and then we'll come back and cut these other two. Now that we have this paper on, I'm going to go ahead here and add my adhesive across the bottom and the side of my pocket. I'm going to close this and adhere this down. From the 8 by 8 paper, I cut the stack of books. Then I put it on cardstock and fussy cut it. I'm going to put this here, but I'm only going to adhere down this part and then what is on here. So I'm going to leave this open so that that pocket is still open at the top. So I've only adhered this piece down on the left-hand side. I've left this open. I don't know what I was thinking. I forgot to cover this piece first. So you want to put this paper on before you put this paper on, but I'll show you how I'm going to do it to make it work. I've taken my 8 by 8 paper with the little guy with his crystal ball on it. I've cut this just past that crystal ball, so it's a little bit more than 3 1/4 inches, but not too far. And for right now, we're just going to cut that straight down the page. Set that aside, we'll use that later. I'm going to take this piece here next, and this piece is cut to 4 inches by 3 inches. So 4 by 3. And we're going to place this. Now I've already marked this, luckily, since I already put this piece on, but when you do this, you're going to place this so this corner is up here, even with that slant line, just like we did with this piece. Then where it hits that edge, you're going to place that mark. So I have my mark here. Then I'm going to come over to my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut from that right corner down to that mark that I drew. Now I'm just going to place mine underneath of here so you'll be able to see that it fits perfectly on there. So I'm going to adhere this down, then I'm going to add just a little drop of glue here to adhere this so that it is flat on my pocket. The final piece I'm going to cut is from this 12 by 12 blue paper. So it is cut to 3 1/4 by 6 inches. And what I did with this one was the same we've been doing. So I have this lined up this right edge, this right corner with the edge of my slant on my pocket. Then I've marked it, and then I'm going to take it to my paper trimmer and trim from the mark that I made to the upper right corner. And then I'm going to apply this paper here to cover my middle pocket on my page. Now that my paper is on, I'm going to go ahead and apply my adhesive down the left side and bottom, closing this and making this a pocket. We're going to start with the long photo mat first. I mentioned to you to set this piece of paper aside for now. We're going to use this piece, but we're going to cut a little bit off of the top. So this piece needs to be 6.5 inches tall by about 3.25 inches wide. So I'm going to place this here right on the front of my photo mat. And then on the back, I have 2 white mats that are cut to 3.25 inches by 3.25 inches. And I'm going to place those here and here on my mat. Once the photo mat is finished, I'm going to slide it over here into the middle pocket, but I'm going to place it to the left hand side so that these are staggered. Now I've got my photo mat that measures 3.75 by 4.25. From the 8x8 paper, I've cut one piece that measures 3.5 by 4 inches, and I'm going to adhere this right here to the center of this mat. Then from my 8x8 paper, I cut this image. I left a very small white border around it just so that it will stand out a little bit better on the paper. I'm going to place this right here in the center of this mat. Once the front's finished, we're going to flip over on the back. I have one white photo mat that measures 3 inches by 4 inches. I'm going to place this here in the center. Now this was a scrap piece that I had from one of the papers that we had cut previously. It's blue on both sides. I cut this to 1/4 inch by 4 inches. I'm going to place one piece on either side. If you don't like to work with little tiny pieces like this, you can also just make one that's 1/2 inch by 4 inches and put it on one side and then push the photo mat over. Once the photo mat is finished, I'm going to tuck it down in this front pocket. I've also cut the little tiny bookmark from the 8x8 paper, and I'm going to tuck it in this pocket too. Now for the final photo mat, it measures 4.25 by 4 inches. I have from the 8x8 paper, this was the leftover piece from this photo mat here. So this measures 4 inches by 3.75. I'm going to place this right here on the front of the mat. Then from the 8x8 paper here, this was down at the bottom, I have this image. I've left a little white border on it, just like the last one. I'm going to place it right in the center of this mat. Once the front is finished, I'm going to flip over to the back. I have a white photo mat that measures 4 inches by 3 inches. I'm going to place down here at the bottom. Then I have a piece that's 3/4 inch by 4 inches. This was left over, I think, from the very first page that we cut. And I'm going to place this here at the top of my photo mat. Once this photo mat is complete, I'm going to tuck it here in this back pocket. So I've got this photo mats staggered. Now you can take the bookmark, you can also cut one of the larger, taller bookmarks, and you can place more bookmarks in here if you want to, but I'm just going to tuck mine down in here where I had it before. So now the front of page 2 is complete. We're going to turn over and work on the inside pages. Once you remove your flaps, you're going to measure down from the top left corner 2 5/8 inch, and this is where we're going to place the ribbon for this page. Now this is going to be covered by a photo mat, so I want to make sure that the end of my ribbon is underneath of it. So make sure that you have at least a 1/2 inch of ribbon glued to your page. That way the photo mat will cover the end of it. I need to remove my brads from both of these photo mats before I can put my papers and my photo mats on here. So I have 2 white mats that measure 4 inches by 3 inches. For the top photo mat, the white mat is going to go at the bottom, and for the bottom photo mat, the little white mat is going to go at the top. And then I have 2 pieces that I've cut from this blue paper. They're 1/2 inch by 4 inches, and I'm going to place one here at the top and one here at the bottom. Once the papers are on, I am going to go from the back side and re-pierce these holes. And being very careful not to rip the paper like I just did. So just very gently pierce that hole, and then you can go from the front side down through as well. From my 8x8 sheet of cut-aparts, I've cut out the 2 book images. I've backed them on cardstock just to make them a little bit thicker, and I'm going to place these on my pages as little lifts or pulls for my tabs. So I'm only going to be adhering 1/2. So on the top one, I'm going to place this here. And then for the bottom one, I'm going to adhere this 1/2 and place it down here. So there is actually some of that cardstock over the photo mat, so I needed to wipe my adhesive off. That way my photo will tuck underneath. From this 12x12 paper, I cut a piece to, let's see, it goes this way. I cut this to 6 inches by 4 inches. Then I cut this into 2-inch by 6-inch pieces. So 2-inch by 6 inches. These are going to go here and here, and a 4x6 photo mat is going to go here in the center of the page. Now I need to place this on the page where it's going to go, but then I need to line up my photo mat and pierce my hole. So what I did on my tab here, I have marked the center line, and I am going to use that to line up my little photo mat. So I want to make sure that my photo mat is just to the left side of the score line. The top of this one is going to be lined up right in that center, just a hair below it. So there'll be just a little slight gap between these. And once I have this lined up where I need it to go, I'm going to pierce through those layers. Take my brad, and I'm going to reinsert my brad down through both of those holes. And once I have those inserted, I'm going to open them up on the back side and press this down. Now I'm going to take my piece, and then I will add my adhesive only to the decorative paper, not to the back of my cardstock swing out photo mat. So just this piece here, this 2-inch piece with the brad. And then I'm going to line that up using my photo mat as a guide again as well. And once I have it in position, I can go ahead and swing this out of the way and adhere this down to the page. Then I'll swing this back up into position, placing this one where it needs to go on the page. Then I'll take my second photo mat and I'm going to line it up just like I did the first one, but now I also have that first one as a guide, so I want to make sure that the ends or the left and right edges are lined up. Once I have it where it should go, I'm going to pierce down through my papers. And then I'll insert my brad and open the prongs on the back side. Next, I'm going to add my adhesive to my 2-inch section of decorative paper. Again, not putting any adhesive on the back of my mat. And now I will line this up using the edges of the paper and the photo mat as a guide. And once it's in place, go ahead and open this up and adhere it down. Now that both of these are on, I'm going to swing them both out of the way, and I'll apply my photo mat right here to the center of my page. Now, if for some reason the way you put your papers on, this photo mat doesn't fit in here correctly, just cut it just a little bit to trim it so that it does fit on the page. Once the photo mat is on, I'm going to slide both of these back down. Then I'm going to take my hinge piece and I'm going to miter these corners now because I know I'm going to need to do that when I place it in my book. So this is it for the front and inside of page 2. So we'll next be moving on to the inside and back of page 2. I went ahead and measured down 2.5 inches. I placed my ribbon. My ribbon is 8 inches long. I placed it there with about 1/2 inch onto my flap, just like I did on the other side over here. Now I have my photo mat. It's 4 inches by 6 inches, and I'm going to place it here on the top of my flap. With my 12 by 12 paper, I'm going to use this piece for just below my photo mat that I just put on the page, but I want this to be even, so I'm going to cut this piece here 6 1/8 inch, and I'm going to cut this down to about 3 inches. Now I'm going to come this way and line up my cutter so that it is just at the edge of that book, and it's looking like it's about 2 7/8 inch for me. So I'm going to cut this first, and then I'm going to cut the book, just this individual piece, to about 7/8 inch. I'm going to cut this again, just like I did with the last one, so that it doesn't cut this other book. So it's going to be right at the edge. Now I'm going to come back to this side and cut off 1/8 of an inch so that this is 6 inches long. So now that I have my piece that looks like this, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it down here below my photo mat. From the 8x8 paper, I've taken this piece here that says Ready for Adventure. I backed it on some cardstock and fussy cut that, and I'm going to place this here, only adhering down this bottom section so that the photo will then slide behind it. Then I'm going to open this flap, and I have my photo mat that's 4x6. I'm going to place it here in the center, and then I have 2 thin pieces. They're from this 12x12 paper, and these measure 3/8 by 6 inches. I will place one here at the top and one here at the bottom. From this 12x12 paper, I cut from this top corner. So the piece looks like this. I cut this to 6 inches by 4 inches. Then I cut this into 2-inch strips. One is going to go here at the top, one is going to go at the bottom, and I have a 4x6 photo mat that's going to go right here in the center. Once this is on, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And now I'm going to flip over and we're going to start decorating the back of page 2. I have these 2 leftover pieces that we had cut off of the strips from page 1 when we did our closure. I'm going to use these because they actually fit perfectly on my closure. So I'm going to place one here on the front and then one here on the back side of my closure strips. From the 8x8 paper with the red piano, I've cut a piece to 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. I'm going to place it here on top of the flap, covering the end of this piece. From this 12x12 paper, I cut a piece to 5 1/4 by 3 1/4. I'm going to open this flap and place this piece here. I'm actually going to turn this around so the distressed looking side is down here at the bottom. I'm going to adhere this down, and then I'm going to come back and adhere my closure piece on. Now that this is on, I'm going to bring my flap down. I'm going to first place this here. So that it is around the band. And then I'm going to mark here on the paper where that is so I know where I'm going to place it, but I'm also going to put it back on the band and place it just like I did. So I've got my adhesive. Going to wrap it around my little closure and then set it down right where I had it before. And then I'm going to press down, and then I will lift this out. Now I have a very tiny scrap piece that measures 1/2 inch by 1 1/4 inches. It is a very tiny little piece. This was a leftover part from one of the first cuts we had made. So you can use any type of scrap you want here for this. I'm just going to place this here in the middle. I'm going to erase my little marks first because I don't want to see those pencil marks that I made on it whenever I was putting my score lines. So I'm just going to add this little tiny piece, and then the closure piece will be finished. So then this, just like the other one, but I'm going to use my bone folder this time, I'm going to curve this one just slightly. And the reason I do that is it actually makes it easier to tuck it in here. It'll make it easier to tuck in when I go to close my flap. From this same paper here, I've cut another strip to 5 1/4 by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to place this up here on the top of my flap, and then I have a photo mat that is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to place this here down at the bottom. From this 8 by 8 paper, I'm going to use this section here. I'm going to cut this piece off first though. So I'm going to start just by cutting this so that I don't cut this book or this one. So it's going to be just at the corners of each one. Then I'm going to cut this apart. I'm gonna double check, yep, it works. And then I'm going to trim this down to 5 1/4 inches. And I'm going to trim just a little tiny bit off of the top. So I'm going to adhere this down and then come back and decorate the card. For my card front, I'm going to use this blue paper from the 12 by 12. I've cut this down to 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to place this on the front. And then I've got one of my die cuts from the ephemera assortment, and I'm going to place this here on the center of my card. Now I'm going to flip over to the back side, and I'm using this 12 by 12 paper, cutting it to 4 inches by 5 1/4, placing this piece on the back side. And then opening into the inside, I have 2 white photo mats that are both 4 inches by 5 1/4. So I'm going to adhere these down first and then add some decorations. From this 12 by 12 paper, I've cut 2 tiny pieces that are 1/4 inch by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to add these strips on the sides, only adhering down just these tips so that that photo will slide underneath. So this is just going to catch on my cardstock. And you can place these however far in you want, but I'm just going to place mine just a little bit. I don't want it to be too much over top of the photo and cut off something on the photo, but I want to give a little bit of decoration too so that the book isn't too plain. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. So I'm going to add these in first, and then I've got 2 fussy cut pieces from the 8 by 8 paper that we're going to add on top of this to give it a little bit more of a decoration. This paper does not want to stay down. Just wants to stick to my finger. All right, so now we have the little feather quill and this little like blue notebook journal type thing. So I'm going to put the feather quill, I think just right about here. So I'm just going to adhere down this little part that is on top of the band. And then the little journal, I'm going to place down here. So I'm just going to apply my adhesive on the band and then put that journal right on top. And then I'm going to add a little dot to this band here and catch the tip of that so that that doesn't rip off. So now my booklet is finished. I'm going to go ahead and place it in my pocket here. And then I'm going to close my flap and we'll come in here to the inside. I'm going to open my page up. I'm going to turn it sideways so that it is easier to see I've got a 2-inch piece of my trim, and I'm going to make another little pull here that's going to go in the center. So first I need to mark the center of my flap. And then I'm going to apply my adhesive. Now I'm going to place my ribbon down, and just like the last one, I've got a charm and some twine. I'm using the book charm this time. I'm going to tie a knot in the end of this so that there's a loop, again just like before, so that I can thread it over that ribbon to have it hang down at the end of the page. Once I have that, I'm going to loop my ribbon through here. Making sure my knot is here in the center and that the book is facing the correct way. Then I'm going to go ahead and adhere this ribbon down, and the knot, make sure that it is caught in there too so that it doesn't move. Then I need to place a magnet on this piece too. So I'm going to take my magnet and place it just below the end of that ribbon. Next, I'm going to attach the coordinating magnet and close my flap so that I've got my magnets placed. I'm going to cover this first, and then I'm going to come down here. From the 8x8 paper, I cut 1 row of books, and I cut it to 5 1/4 inches. I'm going to place this here at the top. Then from the 12x12 paper, I've cut this image, and I'm going to place it down here just below the row of books. And then on the back side of my book paper, from this side here, I've taken a strip that measures 1/2 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to place it down here on the bottom. Now that this is covered, coming down here, I have one photo mat that measures 4 by 6. It's going to go up here at the top in the center. Then I've taken this 12x12 paper, and first I cut off this piece here, 6 inches by 2 inches. It's going to go down here at the bottom. Then I cut a piece from the side here that's 6 inches by 2 inches. Then I cut this in half. So I have 2 pieces here. I trimmed this one just slightly less than 1 inch. It's like 15/16, just so that it would fit a little bit better here on the page without pushing these papers aside. So I'm going to adhere this down like that. And then I'm going to come back and add a little decoration. I cut the owl from the 8x8 cut apart sheet, and I'm going to apply it here. And when this is closed, it will be hidden, so you won't see it until you open this up. So I'm only going to adhere down part of the wing and then the bottom part with the claws and the bottom part of the body. I'll leave the rest open so that photo will slide underneath of it. Now that this is finished, I'm going to close this. I'm going to open this, and I cut out one of the bookmarks from the 12 by 12 paper, and I'm going to place it in here. Place it off to this side since the other owl is over here. So that'll be the journaling card. So I'm going to then go ahead and close this pocket back up, and we are now finished with the back, the insides, and the front of the page, and we're ready to add these pages into the album. Just like the first page, I'm going to miter these corners on the hinge piece that I'm going to be placing my page to. So I have the front of page 2 here, and I'm going to add my adhesive here and apply it to this section. Now I'm going to very carefully lay my page down so that it is up against that score line but doesn't go over that score line. And I'm going to try to adhere this down before I move this. Then I'll flip this, and then I can smooth it from this side. I can use my bone folder to make sure that this is adhered really well to that hinge. It's a little hard with those brads there, so I'm just going to set that page down and then use my fingers to press these two together. Now for this page, I'm going to open up this flap. Unfortunately, with the way the pages are, it will actually put the hinge on top of the photo mat, but that's okay. It's not going to be a big deal. So I am going to add my adhesive to my hinge section here on this back side, making sure not to go past my score line. And now I'm going to take this page and I'm going to lay it down on my hinge. Making sure everything is lined up on the page on the sides. And then I'm going to press this down onto the hinge. I know it's probably a little bit hard to see on camera right now because of the angle that this is at, but hopefully you can still kind of get a bit of an idea. Then I'm going to open this up and very carefully start to press this down. I've got my hand on the back side in the same place that I'm pressing down on the front side, so that there's equal pressure and it doesn't fall off of there or move. And so once I have that on, I can go ahead and close this. Make sure those two flaps are in and close that. And now I'm going to stand my book on end again, and I'm going to tie these two pages closed. And I really like the way that I tied this one, so the bow is actually vertical. It's going up and down the page instead of horizontal, so it'll be this way. So I'm actually going to untie my first page and redo my bow so that it will sit vertically too. Okay, so I have my first two pages in my book. And that's it for this tutorial. So in the next tutorial, we're going to decorate page 3. So stay tuned for that. And if you are just joining us for the tutorial, don't forget to check out the description box below where all of the vintage library papers are linked to the Scrap and Create website.